Hi, everybody. I'm not sure what time and space you're going to be able to get this video, but I just know I have to record this video or else I'm going to have trouble sleeping tonight. And God knows I love to sleep. So, I had these downloads come to me the other day and it needed to come out. I wrote it down in, because that's really what happens. I just get woken up and they're like, write down this. I need you to get into this stream of consciousness, and give these notes to whomever is going to click on this video. Or if the algorithm comes up and it just starts playing for you, all of a sudden you're listening to my voice right now. This message is for you. Okay. Um, Also, I'm fully aware that it was a mosquito. Okay. Um, I'm fully aware that the quality of this video may not be that great. It's because where I am currently residing in the heart of nature, baby. Can I get a hello there? Shout out to Ralph Smart. Okay. When I used to watch him long ago. Um, my phone's not working. Okay. So we're getting the quality of MacBook, even though they've never updated their camera from since I had one way back over 10 years ago. Okay. All right, so without further ado, let's get into these things that I wrote down. I'm going to also start reading it just like how I wrote it, mainly because when I am channeling particularly, that spirit comes and they're very are concise. It's like do, 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 do. Okay. By the time I'm recording this, that spirit has already went somewhere else and they gave me the task to record it and then deliver it. Okay. This is why it doesn't matter what time and space you actually get this video. It is meant for you to hear it and gain some kind of understanding, to connect some dots for you. Um, yes, this is going to be a spiritually cleansed space. Okay. No one has the permission to use my energy signature in the astral or physical realm to do anything of their bidding. All right. We're actually really past that point right now. Like really past it. Okay. So I know a lot of different energies and entities are desperate. They're out here in desperation. But we have really surpassed a lot of nonsense. Okay, so I'm just putting that disclaimer out, just so you know. So anything you do with that, just know there will be repercussions accordingly. Okay, um, so yeah. All right, let's get into it. Yeah, if it doesn't concern you, just ignore what I just said. Okay, that was for a particular spirit. Okay, so triggering shadow in truth. Okay, so I did post a video in another space and time that was previous to this one. I believe it was called shadow work versus evil, shadow work or something like that, versus the shadow versus the like the seat, right? The absent of truth. Okay. Um this kind of coincides with that, right? It's about triggering your shadow in truth. Okay, so a lot of times we talk about shadow work, we talk about going into the darkness, right? That has to do with going into the unknown and emerging with something new. In that video, I also described that once you do get to a certain level spiritually after your awakening, you start realizing that you have to go into the dark night of the soul, right? Things that you're not proud of, things that you kind of buried down in your subconsciousness, right? And that necessarily is not a bad thing. Okay, things in the shadow is not, it's not a bad thing. Okay, there's literally so much things that we do not see. Okay, and those of us who act as medium between the seen and unseen, okay, that is our job, to help guide you back through your own darkness, as well as do the work for ourselves to guide ourselves. Okay, because we can't help others do things that we have not helped ourselves to attain. Okay, gain that understanding and shadow work. Okay, you cannot be a shadow worker if you have not confronted your own shadow. Okay, that is just part of the game. All right, so shadow is not that bad. Make sure that everything in your shadow, the light of truth, must be with you while you're going through your shadow work. Okay, this way, because as when you were born, there's been a lot of things projected onto you, a lot of evil things. Some things were not in truth. A lot of fears. Right, that's where you get that kind of archon energy. Right, a lot of things projected onto you because you were vulnerable. Okay, your livelihood and your sense of security relied a lot on other things outside of you. Okay, from the time you were conceived in your mother's womb, you were vulnerable. Okay, so On this channel, we're talking about the idea of what how you can tell the resonance of a soul, right? Your soul is what do you do when other people are vulnerable. Okay. For example, mothers, when your child's in your womb, they're in a vulnerable state, right? Highly spiritual yet vulnerable state. How do you treat that child while they're dependent on you? Okay. And you literally call that child into existence with your physical form. Okay. So that is going to be the true tell of your soul, the quality of your soul. Okay. Whether or not you're in a demonic nature, right? Meaning that you treat anything that's in a vulnerable state as something that you manipulate, something that you cause harm to. Okay. That is what we're talking about when we talk about evil. If someone comes to you in a vulnerable state, how do you treat them? How do you treat them? It's not just people, it's also animals. Because animals have souls too. Plants as well. Okay. Now, I'm not talking about your unintentional not being able to take care of a plant or whatever, right? Because sometimes you don't even have the tools to take care of yourself. All right, we're not talking about that unintentional stuff. We're talking about that intentional stuff. This is why people who have power, if they come when somebody else does not have that same power or that the knowledge of understanding, um, if you use your power to manipulate others, then you start turning evil, demonic, right? But you also have a place in the world because you also will serve as a lesson in that person's journey. Okay, so that's when we talk about the oneness. Okay, but at the end of the day, when you look into the eyes, when you look into your own eyes and you start looking at your own reflections, that is the deciding point, right? What do you do with your power? What do you do with those who are vulnerable in your presence? Okay, do you capitalize on their vulnerability? Evil. Okay, not of God. Okay, um but yes, shadow, make sure you arm yourself with the truth. If you're armed with deception, the shadow will consume you and you will become evil. You will allow that thing to consume your soul. Okay? So just be mindful of that. Okay, triggering shadow in truth, triggering shadow in deception, demonic virus illusion. Transmute either way. So no matter what stage of your journey you're in and you listen to this video and maybe the light bulb went off like I seek truth in all things. You can say that at any point, by the way, any point of this illusionary life that you're living. You can say, I seek truth in all things. I dismantle or remove any words that make you better for your vocabulary, any illusions casted upon my senses. This way you can see every player, every supporting character in your viewpoint, and then they would have no choice in your own resonance, in your own power, to show you who they really are. Okay? Now, to see the results, you require patience. Okay? A matter of fact, if your intuition's not that strong and you're questioning anybody, keep them at bay. You need isolation. Okay? You need isolation in order to heal yourself, cultivate the light within so that when you are in front of others, that light just, okay? They cannot deceive you. The measures of illusion will fall. Okay? Because the illusion is one of fear. Anybody that's trying to keep you in a entrapment of fear, using fear to manipulate, all right, you already know what side they're on in your storybook. Okay? They usually project this stuff. Okay? Shadow feedings must be in truth and nothing else. The thing is, your perception of truth can be clouded by your own frequency. All right. The reason why I wrote this, or the spirit I was channeling, sorry, you guys know when you start burping, you know what that means, right? The reason why that was happening, why I wrote that down, was because in our culture, we do get in with other people, I guess people who are in your covenants, right? There's some sisters that you have that you can confide into, right? Meaning you don't have to put on anything. They're not looking to be led by you. You're not putting on the high priestess hat in their presence, right? You then become a human version of you. Your shadow comes out, meaning all the things that were tucked away, that was not in the light, right? In the physical, you would have thoughts like your intuition would be like, hey girl, something ain't right, but you may put a plug in it for right now because you in the physical it's demanding that you uphold a different thing. Okay. For example, I'll give you an example just so you can understand what I'm saying. If you are taking care of children, right, and we all know children are mini souls, right, that are reincarnated to go through their lessons to gain ascension and become one with God. Okay. But let's say you're taking care of a child and that child is unbelievably rude, right? They call you out your name. You're like, what the hell kind of demon child is this? That's in my shadow. Okay. That is over here because I heard it and I agreed. It was in truth. In truth, I thought this child was bad. Okay. Now, but in front of the child, we're trying to understand that this still is a child. Okay. And it still has much life to live in order to transcend whatever darkness that's inside of their heart or evilness that's inside their heart. Okay. So we cannot call the child a piece of shit. Not yet, at least, right? I think when you reach 7, that's when you start carrying your own sins. But still, we're not gonna get into all that. All right. What I'm trying to say is we cannot get on the same level as children, okay? Because we are the elders in which they look up to. So we have to be in a unfazed matter. Okay. My inner child is tucked away because my inner child would have done beat you. Okay, we don't fight children. Okay, we don't fight children. That's the whole point I'm trying to say. Okay, so what is being presented may not be the exact thing that's in my shadow tucked away. So then when I go with my sister, let me tell you what happened today. This badass child did this, this, and this. Sometimes it's not even children. Sometimes it could be your coworkers. Where you have to put on that mask. Like, yes, Emily, I told you for the 5th time to leave me the F alone. See, this is what you're talking about. Stuff's tucked in your shadow, right? Okay, and the environment in your current frequency, you have not evolved to the point yet where you can just be truthful without repercussions. Okay, which is okay. This is all a journey. Okay, you're going to get there. This is why you notice older people, elders, who are just so comfortable in their skin that they don't give a F what they say, who say it, they don't care. Okay, because they have gained that right. They have gone through certain rites of passage to have that right. Not saying that you can't. You can do what you want to do. Okay, you're just gonna go through whatever thing. Okay, but your highest self will be the judgment. So when you go with your sisters and you have your shadow work, that's really when all that stuff comes out, right? Sometimes there's wine involved to, I guess, put down your guards, your boundaries, in order for that shadow to come out. Okay, not necessarily. You don't need it necessarily though. If you really walk in truth, then it's no problem, right? Um, But yes, we are fully aware that most of us are in environments that do not allow us to be present. And presence is where you get the perfect answers out, the perfect things where you're connected to your higher self and you're grounded within your vessel. You're able to handle these situations of contrast with grace. You're able to handle these situations without really frustration. But at the end of the day, whenever you do want to have that shadow part, because I do my shadow work by myself sometimes too. I would just start talking to myself in my room, okay, or my sisters can hear in the ether. Okay, that's the kind of level that we're on. Telepathy, right? So either way, there's a disturbance in the frequency. That's where the shadow work comes from. And it has to be based in truth. Now, where people get it messed up is when you start getting into the frequency of deception. Okay, it's a very fine line. Pay attention, women, okay? Especially when it comes to gossiping. That is something that's going to keep you trapped. It's going to trap your soul, okay? So it's one thing to work on the shadow, right? I usually have a really big, my shadow hates it when people are lying because we can feel it. We can feel the lies, we can see it, and we're just like, oh my God. It's like so annoying. But it's not more a reflection of who you are than it is of me. So I don't really be getting that upset about it. I just know how to move, right? But the point is, once you are doing your shadow work and you start attaching other deceptive things to the moment of truth, that's when you start really, I guess, it's like a trade of your light for darkness, or should I say evil, right? So it's one thing if I say that little girl was so damn rude, she got me really upset, right? And then it's another thing where I say that, which is true, and then my shadow comes on and they're like, I wish ill will onto her. Do you see? All right. Now, depending on where you're at in your bloodline ascension, right? It's too much, right? It's too much, but we hold space. We hold space and then we correct accordingly because we don't want you to have that frequency on your aura field. All right. And those who kind of roll with me kind of don't want to be murked by these kind of things anyway. You don't want the contrast to make you demonic. Okay. You don't want, because that's not true to your consciousness, right? Because you know, whatever you wish onto others, you wish onto yourself, right? It doesn't mean we don't get annoyed. It doesn't mean that we don't act, but to really put truth or put breath into causing ill will onto someone else who's operating in a state of ignorance is, again, going back to that evil concept. All right. Especially when you know God, especially when you have the power. All right. That is where you're using their vulnerability, because that's the only reason why somebody would acting retarded in front of you. Okay. It's because they have ignorance or they're battling demons that are bigger than themselves. Okay. So with that divine understanding comes divine responsibility. Okay. To either help or walk away for them to get a bigger angel who can actually take on the assignment. That's really what it comes down to. It's either you can handle, have space, or you cannot have space. Okay. That is the self-service work. This is where I'm sorry. This is the service, being of service work comes from. Okay. It's not getting too attached by what you're seeing and realizing that some people are battling their own demons. Some of the people we're talking about are actually children too. Okay. So it's not about you. It's about their divine assignment. Doesn't mean you don't have your own feelings. That's my whole point of what I'm saying, is that the shadow makes marks like, well, this little baby just hit me. You know what I'm saying? So it is one of those things, right? It's like the separation and understanding. Okay. All right. What else we got here? Not afraid of death by truth allows ascension. All right. So let's say you are having a shadow moment and you're just being completely raw, right? I know I remember when I was going through therapy, I would be really raw, and sometimes my therapist would laugh, right? And she will correct me in such a gentle way. I remember one time I was talking about this girl, she pissed me off, and so I started attacking her physical attributes, right? Which was really retarded. It was very childish, right? But then my therapist just started laughing. She's like, what if she's perfectly fine with how she looks? Do you see how that one grade of truth went straight through the shadow, right? And then I was just like, you're absolutely right. Okay. That is the death of the egoic part of it, to keep you trapped in whatever cycle of contrast with them. Okay. I guess it's the idea of you going high or whatever. It doesn't really matter. But at the end of the day, it's, you don't want to contemporize your spirit, your heart, because you are meeting contrast. All right. All this stuff is supposed to help you see where you are standing on a soul level. Okay. All right, let's go down the list. Natural alignment, natural relationships, no fake friends. Anyone in a survival spirit hasn't fully walked in their power and can be easily compromised. Yes. All right. So be mindful of the people that you have around you. Be mindful of the people who you allow to have access to you in certain levels of this walk, right? People who are operating in a crab in a barrel kind of spirit, meaning that I have to put others down in order to feel like I am prominent. That is a survival spirit, a dog eat dog spirit, and it's very low level. Okay, on this channel we operate in the energy of Ubuntu, which is I am, therefore we are. Okay, which means I don't have to sink you, I don't have to make you feel less than in order for us to eat. Okay, we all ascend together. Okay, and you literally, you're the biggest problem of your ascension will only be yourself, right? Because anything I do for myself, I do for you. Okay, meaning if I take care of myself, I will ultimately be able to show up for you. All right, and the same thing, if anything I do unto you, I do unto myself. So if I do you ill, I'm doing myself ill. All right, that is something that is ingrained in my being. Okay, before I even knew what the word meant. Okay, so you can't fake resonance. It's either you're in alignment or you're not. Okay, it's either we're going in the same direction or we're not. Okay, it's not. There's no hard feelings here. All right. And can be easily compromised. Yes. Don't stress. It's all about you. Direct your own story. You're in charge. Okay. So it doesn't really matter who you have around you, what other spirits. The boundaries is your physical vessel. Okay. Here on the physical plane. All right. And you can easily make boundaries in spirit. Just make sure you are feeding yourself the right things in order to uphold those boundaries. Okay. It's all about you. Direct your own story. You're in charge. If I have a complaint about you, I have to look where in my own perception am I in resonance with that spirit I don't like and I want to make the change. If you are putting me down and it triggers me, I must be subtly putting myself down, seeking the truth. If what you say to me triggers me because on default I hate lies, then I know you are projecting your own thoughts into my reality. Envious people often do this, or people who lack control of their own lives. They want to enslave supporting characters in their world because they too are trapped in their unacknowledged shadow. Whoa, that was good. Let me read it because I know I was kind of pausing because I'm reading notes that just came. Like I said, when my downloads come, it's like, so I'm just kind of bringing it back to you guys. Yeah. If I have a complaint about you, I have to look where in my perception am I in resonance with that spirit. Okay, so the people around you are literally just reflections of you. When you are making connections, there's some part of their spirit that is in resonance with you. It's your job to figure out what that resonance is. Okay, a lot of times with me, if you're trying to figure it out, I'm one here for a great deal of transformation. Anytime I'm showing up in your life or our paths are crossed divinely and you're going to feel the resonance, you're going to be like, oh, what are you doing here? It's because something is causing for you to take a next step. You're in a moment of transformation. That is my presence in my supporting characters' lives. Okay. Um, now, whatever you're projecting onto me, it is what it is. You have to know what that is. You have to know what that is on your own. Okay, but I know I am sent certain places to answer certain prayers. How do I know? Because there's a divine, I can tap in. That's how it is. That's just what it is. Okay. All right. So if you're in my resonance and you're triggering me, okay, and I'm saying me just as an example, you replace this with you because the message is for you. Let's say you're in my presence and there's something that you're doing is triggering me. I have to look as to where in my being have I entertained that triggering response. Okay? Because when, especially women, we are those things, okay? We literally will reflect the karma of any man, woman, or child. Okay? So if my friend's shadow is triggering me, it's because I held a thought form of deception in my own resonance, and she's embodying the thought form. Okay? So I have to be very mindful and have a lot of boundaries on what thoughts I allow to, one, grab from the ether, and then two, let it have resonance in my heart. Okay? That is very important. This is where you take accountability for your life and the life that you're projecting in your physical reality. All right? This is to include your friends. It's to include your lovers. If your partner is not showing up for you, you're probably not showing up for yourself in that manner. You can't turn the way of flow, right? And if you do, you're going to be going against the divineness of your being. All right. Spirit happens first, right? The ether happens and then it's brought to physical. When you try to make things physical to project into the ether, you're going to exhaust yourself. Okay. Life is a flow. All right. So if something is triggering, you have to really sit. As soon as it starts happening, you have to be like, why is this in my resonance? Write it down if you could. If you have a piece of paper and a pen, be like, oh, I'm getting really annoyed by this. And then when you go into your own meditation, your own isolation, right? And I'm mindful of the people who have children, put them kids to bed. I have to say that. Put them kids to bed. You need to have some divine, at least an hour for yourself so you can actually unpack these things. As women, we literally attract all kinds of muck in the ethers, okay? Especially if we're in environments that are not clean, especially when we're in unnatural environments, okay? Or patriarchal environments, okay? So you need that time to cleanse. You need to be able to see the shadow part so that you can actually dissect what's the truth and what are the things that's going to cause you to be able to elevate. Okay? So, yes. If you put me down and it triggers me, I must be subtly putting myself down somewhere. Okay? Seeking the truth. If what you say to me triggers me because on default I hate lies, that's one of my foundational things, right? then I know you're projecting your own thoughts into my reality. All right. So now with that being said, you may have, let's say you ever had one of these friends who try to tell you about yourself, and everything in your foundation is like, that's not true. That's not true. That's not true. This is where she's now projecting. Now, this is not just girlfriends. It could be anybody in your facility. Some people think that they're qualified to tell you about themselves, but really they're just reading their own level of frequency. Okay. And now you are now being constructed as the mirror. Okay. So this is why it's really important for you to seek truth in all things and actually know your shadow, know yourself better, so nobody can actually tell you about yourself. And I say this, when I say this, I'm saying anybody on a frequency that's not your own frequency cannot tell you about yourself. Okay, if we're on the same frequency, then yes, we're direct mirrors to one another, right? But it's based in truth, not deception. All right. And this is where you have to really, really pay attention. Okay. Because there's an old version of you that's trying to keep you stuck in some bull crap. Okay. And when you start really ascending, right, you go through, like, yeah, I'm going to talk about it. You go through your psychosis. Shout out to Cosmic Paradox. I'm going to continue. That's in my notes somewhere. But when you go through a different psychosis, right, others can actually tap into your Akashic records. They can go through your blessings that you're about to come receive, or whatever the case may be, and that may cause some kind of animosity because they are not fully tapped in or living in their own freedom or operating in a state of lack, or again, the crabs in the barrel mentality has taken them and swallowed them whole. Okay. And so they will then try to position themselves in your life, right, and then try to I guess project doubt, project fear, project these demonic things onto you. Okay. This is where you have to really stand firm and have that mental toughness. Okay. Being without the influence of others in the physical allows you to explore the contents of your soul. That goes back to the isolation thing I was just talking about. I know on my channel I talk about the importance of feminine energy and those who choose and were chosen to embody it. And that's just a balance to the layers of hell I experienced when the masculine energy tried to enslave or use their gifts to try to dominate instead of protect. All right. Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure on my channel, I know I talk about the feminine energy a lot. I talk about the embodiment of feminine energy, which can only be done by the XX chromosome. Okay. I'm talking about embodiment, like in your vessel. Okay. I'm not talking about the energy, because everyone has feminine and masculine energies. I'm talking about the embodiment. Okay. The physical embodiment of it. Okay. Naturally. Okay. And that's just a balance to the layers of hell I experienced when the masculine energy tried to enslave or use their gifts to try to dominate instead. So I'm just providing on this channel the balance to that, because that's the reality in which I have ascended from. Okay. And I'm creating a pathway which others have walked, maybe not many, but others have already walked, and I'm creating that pathway for those coming up behind. Okay. So don't get offended. And if you don't, this is probably just not the channel for you. Okay. But just know that's the reason why I harp on the feminine energy and cultivating that so much, because the women are the programmers of society. Okay. And any work that we do as far as karmic cleansing work or anything like that, is that they're going to be a direct benefit to whatever society that we settle down into. Okay. Okay, so let's see. I get it. Most of us haven't been on the timeline in which we all ascend without one of us suffering. And so there's a process to reconnect and ascend past crabs in the barrel mentality. So again, that's how you know I wrote this, right? I haven't read these notes in a while, but it's in me. Okay. The crabs in the barrel mentality. So I understand a lot of us are leaving past paradigms in which it was a doggy dog world in these streets, right? It's either you do or you get got, or whatever. You know, it's like, that's not what reality can be. It doesn't happen. Once you get to a certain part of ascension and consciousness, you can project a different reality. Okay. So let's do that accordingly. So I give the balanced perspective for those experiencing the worst of that reality. The reality where the masculine wants to position themselves as God in your reality. All right. So masculine representing the physical, feminine representing the spiritual. All right. Spirit comes first. Spirit comes first. Okay. I'll put it this way. When a woman finds a man that she wants to procreate with, that story was happening in spirit long before you guys even physically met. Okay? Whatever she was feeding herself mentally, physically, spiritually, is going to be the cultivation of whatever those eggs, that those finite eggs that she has in her womb right now, that is going to be the point of attraction. Anything that she's lacked, if you're able to provide that in the physical, she will gravitate toward you because that's what was part of her storyline. It was part of her spirit, that's her energy signature. Okay, so attraction doesn't come just like that. I know some people manipulate. There's manipulation, cologne, words. They might go to an entity, ask for courage, and all this crazy stuff. But yes, so in that reality, spirit, again, in all reality, spirit happens first. Okay, so there was an energy, there still is energy that will be gone from my reality pretty soon. But there was an energy that tried to use physical dominance in order to enslave the spiritual. Okay, and so I am providing the balanced perspective for that, to get these women out of that mind field. Okay. Um, Also, once you awaken, you go through spiritual psychosis, which reveals then the many layers of thought forms, spirits that embed themselves in your subconsciousness. Shout out to Cosmic Paradox. Go watch her stuff. It's amazing stuff. She made a video explaining this to help all the new people being consciously aware of their psychological and spiritual state. Now, whether you are a man or woman, all these concepts apply. Yeah, right? So we're all like on a different timer, right? We all don't wake at the same. We don't all wake up at the certain time. We all, but there's children who just are also born here. They're just woke. They understand their mission, and they're gonna continue, and they're gonna have the support of the people who came before them. Okay, but for those of us who are just getting, I guess, logged on, okay, and deciding to take the player one characters into their reality and taking accountability for all their actions that they have done and their karmic clearing. Welcome to the team. I love you. I wish you nothing but the best. Cosmic Paradox breaks it down. She talks about the spiritual psychosis that happens, and she talks about the Kundalini energy going up your chakras and then getting like shunted down because certain things you have not worked through yet, right? Whether it be security, the flow of sacral energy, sexual energy, willpower, heart power, the throat chakra, your third eye, or your crown. Okay, it could get caught up, and then once it gets caught up there, your reality will instantly start getting a little crazy because it's going to help you work through whatever issues. It's going to bring physical all the things all the thought forms that was embedded in your subconsciousness. Let's say it was, my father never loved me, or I am suffering from abandonment issues. My inner child never gotten over this, whatever. So you're going to start literally going through this process where all this stuff is going to come up to the surface, and it's going to be crazy. All right. But it's all for you to stand ground. So you have to stay grounded. Okay. And there's going to be people that are going to be there to help you along the way. And there's also going to be people who are going to take advantage of you in your vulnerable state. Okay. They have made contracts with certain demonic energies to do that. That's what I said. The best way for you to tell whether or not someone is demonic or evil is, what do they do to you when you're in a vulnerable state? Do they try to help you, or they try to sink you? Okay, that's part of the walk. And no one can save you from this. This is an internal thing. Once your mind starts opening up these different archways or pathways of communication or connection to source, you can't close them. Okay, but I promise you, there's a lighter version of yourself at the end of the tunnel. I promise you that. Okay. All right. Also, this has to be said, on this channel, we honor divine union, respect for our counterparts. We do not wish to enslave anyone. It's either you're aligned with our best possible timeline, or you're not. Okay. Alchemizing pain, past trauma is part of that process of refinement. That's why you can't positively think your way into ascension. You must ground yourself in reality and use the different codes to ascend past the old version of yourself. It's uncomfortable, it's pretty nasty work for some, and require a sacrifice to attain that version of yourself you wish to experience. All right. So, yeah. So, don't let anybody come on Instagram and think it's all love and light. No, love and light is definitely part of it, though. Okay. It's really annoying when the people who are more prone to the darkness try to make it seem like love and light isn't. No, you need that. You need it. Okay. Love, light representing the truth. Get that straight. Light represents the truth. Because if you're not moving in the truth, I don't know what we're doing. You're just lying to yourself because you ain't lying to me. All right. You need to move with light because light represents the truth, right? It doesn't matter how far in the darkness or the shadows you go. All right. A lot of people be taking this whole thing and making it into some kind of, it gets cheesy. All right. This darkness. It's just the unknown. It's the unseen. Okay. But regardless of all that, while we're moving here, okay, instead of trying to trigger fear, which I guess I think it's part of the process. So I don't mean to call y'all out. Okay. But once you're able to overcome that fear, my friends, as I'm talking to you, you need to cling to the truth about yourself. And only you know that. Okay. That's a divine conversation between you and God. Like I said, there's those of us who are here that you just can't see. All right. So we see you before you see yourself. All right. And we have the patience for everything to be revealed. All right. But that's neither here nor there. You need light, and then love is the key. Okay. It doesn't matter what culture, I don't care what religious background you come from. Love, your heart chakra is the key portal to divine ascension. If you don't have this part, because your heart is really what gets weighed. Okay. How light your heart is. Okay. Whatever you have done unto others will come back onto you. And your soul knows this on a very integral level. Okay. So you cannot, oh, good, thank God. You cannot move without the heart space. You can't and actually be about this spiritual work. Okay. The heart is the portal to ascension. Okay. Now what you experience all depends on your heart's desire. And it also depends on what level of life, what level of reality you want to actually rest your head on. Okay. And there's those of us who just can't sleep. All right. But it all has to do with settling karmic debt. That's really what it's all it is. Okay. Because there was a time you did not see, you did not know, blah, blah, blah. But once awakening happens, you just got to keep going through it. Okay. Facing those demons, facing the lies, the parts of you that, you have to grab your fragmented part from. Okay. Those memories, those past lives that you have to reassemble yourself with. Okay. So love and light is part of it, but you cannot ignore your shadow. All right. Oh, that's why you need to clean. That's why the cleanliness. That's why you need all these stuff will come out, because you will be able to see all these things that just thought forms that don't really belong to you. Okay. This is why, like I said, there's some people who walk into your house and they can really pinpoint what corners of your house need cleansing, because your home is a physical representation of your spiritual cleanliness. That's why, shout out to one of my elders. That's why some you meet at the door, some you meet at the gates, and some you actually let inside your house. Okay? Because you don't know what they're carrying. But either way, you need to cleanse the corners of your home. Physically, to try to trigger it in a mental, to clear out the mental space. Okay? Which again, you cannot live by doing physical things only and then thinking it's going to help your spiritual state. No, because your thought forms that when you're walking around, yes. Like for example, let's say you're just sitting here. We all have psychic abilities, all of us. Okay, those of us who are melanated, especially melanated people have psychic abilities. Okay, it's true. All right. Once you start real tapping into that, what start happening though is you're able to make connection, Let's say you walk into a public place, your head's not covered, right? You're just kind of out here winging it. Okay. Or are you going to an enclosed space? All right. Or there's a lot of these retreats where people are trying to get you to do drugs with them. And then next thing you know, your spirit is now in communion with all these other spirits and whatever the case may be, right? No spiritual cleanliness is being practiced. You start, there's like a gray area of where you end and others begin, right? And this is how people try to, like, I guess it's like laundering. There's karmic debt, right? Um, they do this a lot with children too, because children have like a fresh slate, right? And so people kind of want to be near children in order to that they can mask themselves in their light. Okay, it's just a dangerous. Spiritual cleanliness is what needs to be practiced. Okay, that's really what it is. I'm going to end the video now. Last thing I want to say is every woman represents your death and rebirth. Okay, every woman represents your karma. You know, when you're with the right woman, when you guys have a good karmic disposition and things are going well for you in your life, you guys keep ascending. Okay, that's how you know you're with a good partner. Okay, and just to reiterate, on my channel, I'm all for divine union between divine masculine and divine feminine. Okay, and inner child work. You need to have inner trinity whole, and your partner has their trinity whole for divine union to happen. That's what I'm for. All right, bye.